We begin today the third Perek of Masechta Sanhedrin, Daf Chav Gimel. So this Perek will start discussing the details of a Din Torah. The first Mishnah and the first point of the first Mishnah of the Masechta said that Dinei Mamanis B'Shleisha, that you have to have three judges to judge Dinei Mamanis. How do you put together this Bezdin of three? Zok Teilige Mishnah, Dinei Mamanis B'Shleisha. The Dinei Mamanis you judge with three judges. That's just repeating as an introduction what we said in the first Mishnah. So how do you go about this? How do you choose the three judges? Zeh Beider Lo Yechad. One Baldin, one litigant chooses one. V'zeh Beider Lo Yechad. The other one chooses one. V'shneyem Beider Lam Oid Echad. And then both of these judges, they will then choose a third Baldin. Sorry, let me repeat that again. Ushneim, that is the two litigants, the two Balidinim, that is, the two Balidinim, they will choose a third judge.
Not the judges?
No. Divrei Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion. Shneim, the Balidinim, they choose a third. The Chachamim Maimrim, however, Chachamim say, Shnei Dayanin, Beider Lam Oid. The two litigants, they choose the two Dayanim, and then those two Dayanim, they choose the third dayan that's going to be the judge together with them, which is the way we paskin. Another machlokes zeh paisel dayani shel zeh. One could passel the judge that the other chose, and v'zeh paisel dayani shel zeh, and the other could paskin the judge that the other chose. Divrei Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion. Now the Gemara will explain the basis of Rab Meir. What do you mean passel? You can just invalidate him without any legitimate reason. We'll see in the Gemara. The Chachamim say, Emisai, when could one litigant passel the judge that another chose? If he brings a proof for this, that they're a relative can't be a judge, he's passel for that, Oy psulin, or any other psul, if these are judges that are kosher, or they're expert judges, mipi bezdin, and they're experts according to the Bezdin, so then you can't just go and passel them without any basis. A third argument, one could passel the witnesses that the other is bringing, and the other can come and passel the witnesses that the other is bringing. This is the opinion of Rab Meir. And again, this is going to be a long discussion here in the Gemara. Why? Based on what? Why could he just passel the other's Eidim? The Chachamim argue and say, when could you passel another person's Eidim? If you're bringing a proper proof, Shem Kroivim, that they're relatives, Psulin, or they're apostle. But if they're kosher, you can't passel another person's Eidim that he brings. What's the pshat in the Mishnah when it's saying that one chooses and the other chooses? So according to Rashi's pshat, the way the Gemara understood this right now is that when it said Zeb Beider, that one litigant chooses, it means that he chooses a bezdin of three. Beider means the full bezdin, not just one judge. He chooses a bezdin of three, and then the other one chooses a bezdin of three, and then together they choose another three, which would sound like that then you have 9 judges to judge them. So the Gemara's question is, Bitlasa Sagi. It's enough to have 3 judges. So why are we choosing together to bring to a bezdin of 9? Answers the Gemara, this is the correct pshat in the Mishnah. When this one chose a bezdin, one of the balidinim, one of the litigants, he chose a bezdin of 3, and then the other one chose a bezdin of 3, and then what happened is each one of them came and said, I'm not ready to go to the bezdin that you chose. They're not valid for me. I don't want to be judged by them. So then, if each one is invalidating the bezdin that the other chose, so then together they're going to have to choose a third bezdin that they can come to an agreement on. That's what the Mishnah means. So you end up only with one bezdin. The other 2 that each one of them chose was invalidated. So that's the pshat in the Mishnah. So you end up with just 3. Frak the Gemara. So that means that if you have a din Torah and you have the 2 balidinim, so each one of them has the option to invalidate the bezdin that the other chose. But is that true? What's if it's a din Torah where you have a lender and a borrower? Does the borrower have the right to hold back the malva of taking him to the bezdin that he chose? But Rabbi Elazar said, Lo ishanu. We haven't learned, and this is here later in this Perek, Ela malva. So how about what happens if you have a bezdin in a city? That's what that Gemara later there is talking about. In the city there's a bezdin. But now the lender says, I don't want to go to the bezdin here in this city. I want to go to the main bezdin where you have all the big chachamim, which is what Gemara calls it a beis vad, the place where the main chachamim are. Let's go to that main bezdin, not in our city. So Rabbi Elazar says only the malva, the lender, has the right to say that. But avaloive, however, the loive, if he says, I'm not interested in being judged in the bezdin in this city, I want to go to the main bezdin, we're going to force him and he has to go to the bezdin that's here in the city. He doesn't have that kind of control over this dintayra. Rashi here brings the expression that it says regarding a borrower and a lender, Eved loive lish malva. The loive is like a slave of the lender. The lender is the one that did the favor and lent him the money. So when it comes to a dintayra, the loive can't schlep the malva to some faraway bezdin to make a dintayra somewhere else if he doesn't want to pay, whatever the argument is about. Only the malva has that power. So the Gemara's question is, it seems like over here in the Mishnah we're saying that the loiva chose a bezdin, the malva chose a bezdin, and then each one of them, both the loiva and the malva, can invalidate the bezdin that was chosen, which would mean that even in a case where the bezdin that was being invalidated is the bezdin in the city, and the loiva as well can force the malva to go to a different bezdin that's out of the city, to a bigger bezdin. But how could that be true if we know that the loiva does not have that kind of a right? Answers the Gemara, Kedama Rabbi Yechanan, that we could say that this halacha here in the Mishnah, that even the loiva has this right, is like Rabbi Yechanan says, and this is later here in the Amud, Rabbi Yechanan says this regarding the continuation of the Mishnah, that Berkois Shebesur Shonu, that this Mishnah is not talking about a real expert bezdin with dayanim that are paskening, al pitayre, they're Talmidei Chachamim, they're not a paskin. We're talking about a court that was set up where you have plain simple Yidden that are paskening based on what they think is good and right, but not an expert bezdin that's paskening because they know the halachas of the Torah. That's how Rabbi Yechanan explained later on here what the Mishnah is speaking about. So therefore over here, Hachanami berkois shebesur yeshanu. In a case where the malva wants to take him to a bezdin that's not an expert bezdin, so over here even the loiva has the right to say, no, I want to go to a bezdin of Talmidei Chachamim that know how to pasken al pi Torah. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. But the Gemara asks on this pshat, aval mumchen loy. Are you going to say though that by mumchen, if it's already an expert bezdin that's paskening al pi Torah, so then the loiva does not have the right to invalidate the bezdin that the malva wants him to go to? This is part of the. This is not a question. This is part of the answer to the Gemara. Aval mumchen loy. However, when it comes to a bezdin of mumchen, so over here the loiva will not have that right to tell the malva, I'm not interested in being in this bezdin. I want to go to a bigger bezdin that's out of the city. That's not the right of the loiva. Rav Papa Amar. However, Rav Papa says afilatema mumchen, that the Mishnah could be speaking about a case where it is a bezdin of mumchen, a proper expert bezdin that the malva wants to take him to, and still the loiva could say, I don't want that bezdin, I want to go to a different bezdin. And what's the case? Kagain beidine de Rav Huna de Rav Chisda. If it's two bezdins, Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, and Rashi says that both of these bezdins were in the same city, or Taisus here says they weren't mamish in the same city, but they were close enough, they were within 3 parsa, not too far from each other. So in such a case, even the loiva, the borrower, has the right to say to the lender, I don't want to go to the bezdin you chose, because the ka'am alei, the loiva could say, Mikam atarachnalach. Am I requiring you to travel very far to the big beis vad, to a big bezdin that's very far away? They're in the same city, or very close to each other. So in such a case, both, just like the malva, the loiva also has the right to say that I want to go to a different bezdin. Now, so this is the pshat in the Mishnah. This is the first suggestion where the Gemara explains the Mishnah, that we're talking about the fact that each one of the Baalei Dinim chooses their bezdin, but then each one could invalidate the choice of the bezdin that the other chose. But the Gemara asks on this pshat, Tanan, what did it say in the Mishnah? That Chachamim disagree with Rav Meir. Chachamim say, Shnei dayanin b'yirei lem oid echad. That then the 2 judges, they choose a 3rd judge with them. Now, if you're going to say Kidakam Rinan, like the pshat that we just said, that bezdin, that what we're talking about over here is that each one of the Baalei Dinim chose a bezdin, and then what happened was that each one of the Baalei Dinim invalidates the bezdin that the other chose. Bezdin, basa the pasli lahu. So now, this bezdin that was chosen by the litigants, but then they were pasel, they were invalidated by them. They are the ones, according to the Chachamim, that are now going to choose the 3rd bezdin. Why should they be the ones choosing the bezdin? They were invalidated already. They're out of the picture. So how do we understand what Chachamim are saying according to this pshat? Another shaila on this pshat is, my zeh boirer lo yechad v'zeh boirer lo yechad. What does the Mishnah mean when it says that this one chooses one, this one chooses another one, which makes it sound like that this process, what the Mishnah is talking about, is the way it should and has to happen. That he will choose one, he will choose another. But according to the pshat, the Gemara is saying now, this is not the way it should happen. The way it could and should happen is that you choose one bezdin and that's it, you stick to that bezdin. According to this pshat, what all the Mishnah is saying is, if one chose and the other invalidated, and then he went and chooses, and the other invalidates, then you're going to choose a third bezdin. But that's only if. Zeh boirer is mashma, that this is the process. This is how you do it, l'chatchila. So what does the language of the Mishnah mean? So Elo, therefore the Gemara suggests a different pshat. This is the final pshat of the Mishnah here. Hachi kamar, this is how you read the Mishnah. Zeh, and the Bach takes out kesha zeh, because the whole point of the Gemara here is to say zeh, that this is the way the process goes. It's not the b'di'evet. Zeh boirer lo dayan echad, v'zeh boirer lo dayan echad. That when it comes to a din Torah, so each one of the litigants chooses one of the judges, not chooses a whole bezdin. Each one chooses just one judge, and then shneim, both of them together, boirer lo dayan echad. They choose a third judge. What's the reason you do this? This is the maskana of the Gemara in the Mishnah, and this is the halacha Shulchan Aruch. This is what's known as zabla, zeh boirer lo yechad. That each one chooses one judge. But why is it done this way? So in the west in Eretz Yisrael, they said in the name of Rab Zeire, because one litigant is choosing a judge, and the other one is choosing a judge, then and then both of them together are choosing a third. So the ruling will come out, the truth of the ruling will come out the best way. And Rashi says there's two details to this. Number one, that whatever the ruling is going to be, they'll be ready to accept it, because each one of them will say, I had my judge in this din Torah, and he tried to find the facts that are according to my side, and still, this is the psak din, even if it's against me, but he'll be ready to accept it. And besides that, in the actual din Torah itself, each judge that's chosen tries to find the facts that are for the benefit of the one that he was chosen by. So therefore, it ends up that each judge is looking for those facts, and then you have the one in the middle that they discuss it with, and therefore the psak din comes out lamitasei. But obviously, just to clarify, it doesn't mean that each judge that's chosen by his litigant should be biased, chas v'shalom, to try to paskin not according to the facts. All it means is that when he is chosen by this litigant, so he has to look at the facts, and he pays more attention to those details and those facts that will be l'schus, this person that chose him. But it doesn't mean chas v'shalom that he's biased and he starts saying things and paskening not according to Torah, not according to the facts.
But in this, is the litigants, or shneim is the two judges that choose the third?
According to Rab Meir, shneim refers to the two litigants. We don't paskin like this. We paskin like the chachamim.
They don't agree on a third.
Okay, so that could be a problem. But they have to agree on a third one. But we don't paskin like Rab Meir. We paskin like the chachamim that say that the bezdin themselves chooses the third judge. The Gemara now here will explain the machlokes of the Rab Meir and the chachamim regarding this point. So the chachamim say who chooses the third judge? The bezdin, not the balei dinim. Says the Gemara, what's the basis of their machlokes? Name, shall we say, they're arguing about a statement that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav. Eidim should not sign a document unless they know who else is signing this document along with them. If you sign a document and then someone else ends up signing this document that's someone that's puzzled, what happens? Not only his signature is puzzled, but your signature gets invalidated as well. So you end up putting yourself in a position where you embarrass yourself, where your signature on a star gets invalidated. So therefore you shouldn't sign unless you know who you're signing with. So Rab Meir that says that in this case you have the two judges that are chosen, and then they don't get to choose the third judge along with them. The litigants themselves are the ones that choose the third judge. Lest later Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. He doesn't hold what Rav Yehuda Amar Rav said, that even though these two judges may end up sitting with a third judge that they're not choosing, they have no idea who he is, but nevertheless, we're not concerned about that. We allow the litigants, they go and choose the third judge.
The Dayanim to choose the third judge.
No. Rab Meir is the one that said. Rab Meir is the one that says that the balei dinim choose. Shneim. It goes on the balei dinim. V'Rabbanan islu. However, the Rabbanan hold, again, islu the Rav Yehuda Marav. They hold like what Rav Yehuda Marav said, that just like when it comes to Edom, you don't want to sign on the document unless you know who else is there. So too over here, these two judges, they don't want to allow the litigants to choose. How do they know who the third dayan is going to be? So therefore, they themselves are the ones that choose the third judge. Right. So the Bach here adds and says, brings a Girsa and Rashi, that regarding the first two judges, they, even though l'chayr, according to this, everybody agrees when it comes to the first two judges that the dayanim don't choose it. The two Balei Dinim, each chooses their judge, so they end up being put together without choosing one another. So how's that? Says over there, each judge can back out and say, oh, they see that the other judge chose and say, I don't want to be a judge together with him. Because it's before we're coming to the actual Nitaita where you have already three judges. However, when it comes to the third judge is being chosen, now he's the third and they're ready to start the Nitaita, and these two judges see all of a sudden who the third judge is that's walking into the room and they're ready to start the Nitaita, and they will reject him. That will be very embarrassing. So therefore over here, according to the Chachamim, we don't allow the litigants to choose the third judge. The Bezdin themselves has to choose the third judge. But the Gemara says, we don't have to say that the Machlokes of Rav Meir and the Chachamim is based on this statement of Rav Yehuda Marav regarding Eidim, signing on a star. Because the Kul Alma Ism Lahud Rav Yehuda Marav, everybody agrees to what Rav Yehuda Marav said. V'dasa dayanim kulam lepligi. Here, the way to understand the machlokes in the Mishnah is everybody agrees that the judges have to agree to that third judge. Kulam lepligi de beina, that you need that. Ki pligi, what's the machlokes between Rav Meir and Chachamim? Das Balei Dinim. Do we das Balei Dinim, the litigants, they themselves, do they have to also agree in choosing the third judge? Rav Meir savar das Balei Dinim nami bina. Besides having the agreement of the judges on the third judge, the litigants themselves also have to agree to that third judge. But Rabbanan Savri, however, the Rabbanan say, Das hadayanim bi'inon, you need just the agreement of the judges for the third judge. Das Balei Dinim loy bi'inon. But over here for the third judge, the litigants themselves do not have to agree at all to this third judge. It's nothing to do with them. It's not up to them. Gufe, going back to the statement that was mentioned here, Omer Rav Yehuda Marav, that you don't sign on a star unless you know who you're signing with. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned this in a Braisa, Kach Hayu Neki Adasha B'Yerushalayim Ma'isen. Those that had a pure understanding, a pure das in Yerushalayim, that this is what they would do. They wouldn't sign on a document unless they know who's signing with them. And they wouldn't sit as a judge in a bezdin, who's sitting along with them as a judge. And a third thing, they wouldn't go into joining, eating in a meal, unless they would know who else is going to be sitting here at this meal. Who are they sitting with? What's the conversation going to be about? Rashi here brings that Talmidei Chachamim don't want to sit by a meal together with Amaratzim. So therefore they look to see who they're going to join for a meal. The next thing in the Mishnah is that Paisel Dayane Chulu. So Rab Meir says that each one of the Balei Dinim could passel the judge that the other chose. So that means that he can passel without any legitimate reason. Chachamim say, no, you have to have a raya, you have to have a reason that you're passeling. But Rab Meir says you can passel. In fact, the Gemara, Kol Kamine, the Passel Daini, this person has such a koyach to passel the other person's dayanim. Why? If he has no basis, how could he passel them? Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Yochanan says, and this is what was quoted before in the Amud, that the Mishnah is not talking about an expert judge or expert judges that were chosen here. We're talking about their kois, a court that was set up. And this was set up in Syria. There was set up a court of Yidden that are just judging based on what they understand, what they feel is right, nothing, but they don't know the halachas of the Torah properly. Over here, each litigant could say, I'm not accepting these kind of judges. I want to go to a proper bezdin, to Al Pi Torah. However, if they're expert judges, then the Rab Meir would agree that you can't, each one of the Balei Dinim cannot passel the other judge. In fact, the Gemara, how could you say this is the pshat? What does it say afterwards in the Mishnah? The Chachamim that disagree, what do they say? Chachamim Messiah, when could one passel another's judge? Bizman shemei viraya. He brings proof. Shen Kraven, Epsulin, the relatives or passel. Avlam hoyuk shedin. If the judge that was chosen is kosher, oy mumchen mipi bezdin, he's a mumcha according to bezdin, and a yachal paislam. then you cannot passel the other's judge. So Chachamim, when they argue in Rab Meir, are clearly also speaking about a case where the judge that's chosen there is a mumche, and because he's a mumche, you can't just go ahead and passel him. So Miklal, from this we understand that Rab Meir that disagrees, mumche nami kamar. Rab Meir also holds that even if it is an expert judge that the other Baldin chose, so you can still go and passel him. Answers the Gemara, hachi kamar. This is how you have to understand the statement of the Chachamim that argue. If it's kosher Yidden, even if they're not expert judges, they're just stam 3 Yidden that are judging, and they're judging with their own seichel, not al pi Torah. Nasa kamumchen v'pi bezdin, they become like mumchen of a bezdin, v'eni yachal paisla, and the other baldin cannot passel this person that was chosen to be a judge. So the Gemara now asks on this from a Braise, on this pshat, Toshema, the Braise says, Amru loy l'Rab Meir, Chachamim said to Rab Meir, loy kol eimenu shepaisel dayin shemumche l'rabim. You can't have one baldin passel the judge that was chosen by the other, since he's a mumche, he's an expert for everybody. So here it clearly says that the reason why the Chachamim are disagreeing is because it's a case of a mumche. So we see that Rab Meir says that you can passel even a dayin that's a mumche. Says the Gemara, Eimed, the way to understand and read that Braise is, loy kol eimenu, that one baldin does not have the right shepaisel dayin shehimchuhu rabim aleim, that everybody accepted these people to judge them, even though they're not expert judges al pi Torah chamid chachamim. But if there are people that were accepted by the rabbim and they're paskening for everybody, in such a case, one baldin cannot stop the other one that chose this dayan, this judge. That's the pshat over here. So this explains here the basis of the machlokes of Rab Meir and the Chachamim. Rab Meir say, even though he's not an expert judge, but you can't argue and say, I don't want to use this expert judge. Now that it became the standard and everybody accepted him, and therefore the other Baldin chose him as a judge, you can't refuse. But the Chachamim say, in the end of the day, he's not a mumche, he's not the Talmud Chacham, so therefore you still could argue that you don't want to accept him. Tani nami hachi. You learned this in the Braise as well, clearly, that lo'ilam paisel v'hoilech, that any of the litigants could passel the judge that was chosen, achi kabbalah of bezin shemumche l'rabim, until the other litigant chooses a judge which is a mumche. Once he's a mumche, now you can't refuse to use him as a judge. This is Rab Meir's opinion. So we clearly see that once the other litigant chooses a mumche, Rab Meir agrees that you can't refuse that baldin, or that dayan, that judge. Okay, so this is the explanation of this machlokes here. Now the Gemara goes on to the next case. But what was the next case in the Mishnah where they were arguing regarding witnesses, Eidim? Over there, Rab Meir also said in the Mishnah that you can passel the other person's Eidim, and even without a reason. And Chachamim say no, you have to bring a proof if you want to passel the other person's Eidim. Now v'ha Eidim kamumchim dami. When you bring in Eidim, so any Eidim, 2 kosher Yidden, regarding the halacha of Eidus, they're perfect. They're perfect Eidus, so just like regarding a Bezdin, that it's mumchen, that you have to know the halachas of Torah. By Eidim, everybody's like a mumche. Everybody's kosher for Eidus. Still, Rab Meir says that you're able to passel the other person's Eidim even without a proof. So we see that Rab Meir holds you can passel Eidim, so we should apply the same thing regarding judges, that you should say that Rab Meir holds that you're able to passel another person's judge that he chose, even if he is a mumche. Answers the Gemara, but we learned on this opinion of Rab Meir regarding the Eidim. Reish Lakish said, the holy mouth of Rab Meir would say such a thing, that you're able to passel another person's Eidim without any good reason. So what is the pshat on what Rab Meir said? Tani, learn the Mishnah, Eidoi. You have to read it as a singular term, that you can passel another person's single aid. Not, 2 Eidim the other person brings, you can't passel. But if it's 1 aid, you can passel. So the Gemara explains this. What's the case? What are we talking about? Eidoi, aid that another person brings, lamai. For what matter did the other litigant bring an aid? Is it for a money matter? Rachmana pasle. So then the Torah apostles, you can't paskin according to 1 aid. So again, so what the Gemara was saying is, you want to use that 1 aid to actually force you to pay money. You don't pay money based on 1 aid. Now, if you want to use that 1 aid in order to obligate you to have to swear against what that aid is saying, that's the halacha regarding an eid echad, that the words of the eid echad is not strong enough to obligate you to pay, but kam hu l'shvua. He is strong enough to obligate you to swear, to contradict what he's saying. So in this case, how could you go and invalidate that 1 aid? Here the Torah says that he's believed regarding a shvuah, just like 2 are believed to force you to pay. That's the Gemara La'olam L'moment. We're talking about that one aid that the other Baldin is bringing to force you to pay. We just said that Al Pitaira, anyways, it's possible he can't force you to pay. Like tzriche, what do we need this for? The case is as follows: the kibla ale kibetrei. That over here, these two balidinim, they had an agreement. They agreed that we're going to accept the words of this one aid to be as good as two aidim. And then after you accepted that, now one of the litigants wants to back out and say, no, I forget it. I don't trust this one aid, and we're not going to rely just on the words of one aid. And that's the machlokes. Rav Meir says he can back out of that agreement, and the Chachamim say, no, once they agreed, unless he finds a proper something that's invalid about this aid, you can't just back out of that agreement. Says the Gemara, my kamash malons, according to this pshat, what are they teaching me here? What's the machlokes of Rav Meir and the Chachamim? The matzi hadebei. So Rav Meir is saying that you're able to back out from an agreement that you made to accept this one aid. Why is it necessary for our Mishnah to say this? Tanina, we learned this already in the Mishnah later in the Perek here. Omaloi, what happens if one Baldin says to the other, Nemon alai Abba, Nemon alai Avicha, I accept that my father will be able to be a judge in this din Torah. Your father could be a judge in this din Torah, even though they're relatives, and a relative is not supposed to be a judge. But I'm accepting that he can be a judge. Or Nemon alai Gimel Roye Bakar, I'll accept even 3 shepherds that don't know the halachas properly, but nevertheless, I'm accepting them to be the judges. Rav Meir says, even after this agreement, he's able to back out from this. Once there was an agreement made, you cannot back out from this agreement. Rav Dimi, son of Rav Nachman, son of Rav Yosef said, the case over here is that the father or his father that was accepted, someone that's puzzled, that was accepted to be a dayan, he was accepted to be one of the dayanim. And it's in this case that Rav Meir says that he can back out. So the question is, if I see over here that Rav Meir says he can back out, why does it have to say our case regarding 1A that they accepted to take the words of one aid, that then he could back out? He's basically saying the same kind of halacha. The Rishonim over here add in the pshat of the Gemara is bringing up over here at Taisvis and others, that the Gemara is bringing up what Rav Dimi said, because if not for what Rav Dimi said, then you can maybe say there's a difference. In that case, when you accepted a father to be a dayan, you could say maybe the pshat there is, number one, you accepted a father, which is a karev, he's not supposed to be a judge, and number two, it's just a father, he's being a dayan himself, without any other dayanim. So because there's 2 chesronis there, that's why Rav Meir said that you can back out later. But that wouldn't apply in our case, where it's just one issue, that you accepted 1 aid instead of 2 aidim. But now that Rav Dimi said that over there, the father is only 1 out of 3 judges, and still Rav Meir says he can back out, so it should be the same over here regarding the aid. Why does the Mishnah have to say here the halacha again regarding the fact that when you accepted 1 aid, you can back out? Says the Gemara Tzriche. No, it is necessary for Rav Meir to say the halacha here regarding this 1 aid. Because the Tana Abba Vavicha, if the Mishnah, if you would only have that halacha regarding when you accepted, there was an agreement that you're going to use a father or his father for as a judge. Over there, the Rabbanan said that you can't back out of that agreement. And the reason is Mishum da Abba Vavicha, a father or his father, which are relatives, Chazul Alma, they are good, perfect judges for anyone else. For them, they're kravim, they're relatives, they can't be a judge. But really, they're perfect judges. So therefore, maybe it's only in this case that the Rabbanan say, once there's an agreement to use them, you can't back out. But the agreement that was made here regarding the Eidim, to use 1 aid to be in the place of 2, this is something that, for nobody, this is not something which is acceptable. Torah says you have to have 2 Eidim. So I would say that in this case, Rabbanan agreed to Rab Meir that when they made such a kind of agreement, such an exception to the rule, here maybe the Rabbanan agree that they could back out of this agreement. So therefore I'd have to say that even over here, the Rabbanan say that they can't back out. And the same thing in the reverse, v'yashminam baha. If it would only say that in this case they can back out regarding accepting 1 aid, I would say baha kama Rab Meir. Maybe only over here accepting 1 aid is such an extreme thing. Here Rab Meir says they can back out. Avla bahi, but in that case where there's a father that's a judge and he's an expert judge, it's just that he's a relative to them. I would think that Rab Meir would agree to the Rabbanan that they can't back out. Tzricha, therefore, I have to say both of these cases. Okay, so this was the pshat of Rish Lakish, that when it said in the Mishnah Eidim that one can invalidate the other's Eidim, you have to read the Mishnah Eidoi, Lashon Yachid. And therefore the case here is that they accepted 1 aid, and then Rav Meir is saying that you can back out from that agreement. But the Gemara asks on this pshat, in the Reisha of the Mishnah, when it spoke about choosing judges and invalidating another person's judge, it says dayan noi, that you can passel the other person's dayan. Here it says a singular term, one dayan. But v'seifa, here though, when it talks about invalidating the other person's edim, it says eidov. It uses a plural term, edim. So you can't say that the lashon of the Mishnah is not precise, because we see the Mishnah is changing the term here. It's clearly saying that we're talking about two edim, al medavka ketani. So we see that it is talking specifically about the other person that's bringing two edim, and Rav Meir says you still can invalidate his two edim. So if the Gemara brings another pshat, Omar, or some great to say, Ella Omar Rabbi Elazar. So Rabbi Elazar says another pshat. What is the Mishnah talking about? What's Rav Meir saying? That you can invalidate the other person's edim? It's not the Baldin himself that's invalidating the other person's edim. It's him together with someone else. He brings another aid together with him. So not the two of them. It's the litigant with another aid, and they together are passeling the other person's edim. They're testifying against the other person's edim that they're passel. In fact, the Gemara, how does that solve this? Kol Kamine. Could he be an aid together with someone else to passel another person's edim? Negei beidus. He's a negei beidus. We know one of the basic things, benegei to a eidus, is that someone that is biased because he's saying eidus on something that he's going to gain something out of this. He can't testify. So here you're in a din Torah with someone, and he brings edim, and you're gonna be an aid together with someone else to passel his edim. You're saying the eidus you're negeya for your own money. Rav Acha clarifies what we're talking about over here is kagoin shekala kara olav adar, that you together with someone else are saying they're saying something which challenges the validity of the other person's edim that he brought. There's a certain flaw that you're bringing up about the other person's edim, and here you will be allowed to say this. So again, the Gemara goes on to clarify what kind of a flaw are you bringing up about the other person's edim. What kind of a challenge is this? If you're coming together with someone else and saying that the edim the other person brought are gazlanim, they're thieves, kol kamine. Are you believed to say this? The same thing, the same question. You're not impartial. You're saying this because you want to invalidate the other person's edim to save your own money. Hello, says the Gemara, the case over here is arar the pegam mishpacha. You're bringing up a flaw in the edim that were brought, where the flaw is not just in those edims personally, something that they did. It's an error regarding the whole family. What you're coming now together with someone else to testify is that this family has a problem in it. This is a family that a generation ago or 2 generations ago, they come from an Evet Kanani that was not freed properly, and therefore they don't have good yichus, so he's not a proper yid. So therefore the whole family is not kosher for edus. So they're not saying edus specifically against this one person. So what's the argument here? Rav Meir, so in this case, Rav Meir says, Hani, so now the litigant together with another aide that's testifying against this family, Amishpacha Kamisadi. They're not testifying just about him that he's puzzle. They're coming to testify that the whole entire family comes from a problematic lineage, and the whole family is puzzle. And for you, this aide that's now testifying, kapasal, he becomes puzzle along with the entire family. So therefore, according to Rav Meir, in such a case, the issue of negeya be'edus does not apply, because you're not saying edus about this specific person. You're saying edus about the entire family. But Rabbanan Savri, however, the Rabbanan say, and this is how we paskin, soif negei be'dusiho. At the end of the day, you are not impartial here. You're saying aid is to passel the entire family, but included in that entire family is this aid that's coming to testify against you now, and you're only saying this to save your own money. So you still negei be'edus. So Achrayim explained the hezbollah of this machlekes. It's a little bit hard to understand Rav Meir's opinion, just because you're also including the whole family. So now all of a sudden you're not negei be'edus. You're impartial about this. Obviously, you're only doing this because conveniently this person will become puzzled together with the entire family. So the hezbollah that Achrayim say is there's a famous shaila that's brought up by the Achrayim. This is in Shulchan Aruch Simon Lamed Zayin. The Sman, the Shach talk about this. Some say that the whole psul of negei be'edus is not the impartiality that has to be by when you testify. It's not about the fact that you're going to gain out of this and therefore you're puzzled. The psul of negei be'edus is just like the psul of a karev. Just like a relative cannot say edus on himself, which is not because there's a concern that you may lie. A Karav may not say Eidos on himself, which is a Gzeres HaKasav. As the Gemara says in Baba Basra, even Moshe and Aaron can't testify together. By a Negei Eidos, when you say Eidos about something which is going to reflect or you're going to gain out of it, so you're basically saying Eidos about something which is about yourself. And a person is the closest relative to himself. So as a Karav, you become puzzle. But not because that there's any chshad that a Yid is saying a lie when he's Negei Eidos. If that's the issue, that you're a Karev, so then you could say that in a case where you're saying Eidos about the whole family, so over here, I'm saying Eidos about the family. So I'm not saying Eidos about this person or about what's negated directly to me. The fact that automatically it comes out that it's relevant for you as well, that's a side outcome that comes out later. But as long as the Eidos itself is not about something which you're a Karev to, then you'll be kosher. That's what Rameir holds. But the Chachamim, though, argue and say, no, the Psul of Negei is the fact that there's a chashash that you're going to lie. So therefore, even in this case, there's still a chashash you're going to lie. So therefore, you're going to be possible. You can't invalidate the other person's eidim. A third pshat the Gemara brings in the Mishnah. What is Rav Meir here saying that you could invalidate another person's eidim? Ki asar Rav Dimi Omer Rav Yechanan. He said in the name of Rav Yechanan as follows: Machlokes. The argument here in our Mishnah is b'shtei kitei eidim, that this other baldin that is against you, he has two sets of witnesses to bring to prove his case. That's what he came. He came and told us. And they didn't tell you. He came and told the Bezdin, I can bring you two sets of Eidim to prove my case. Now the Shaila is as follows. We learned this concept also in the Gemara in Baba Basra. When you come and say such a thing, will you now have to bring those two sets of Eidim? Just because you said you have them, do we say, whatever proof you say you have, you have to bring all that proof into the Bezdin? Or we don't say that. You said you have two groups of Eidim to bring, but as long as you bring one to prove your case, that would be good enough. So the Rav Meir says, Tzarech levarer. Once you said you have those two groups of Eidim, in order to prove that what you're saying is true and you're not just a liar, so you have to back up everything that you said. If you said you have two groups of Eidim, so you have to bring those two groups of Eidim. This is the Gersa in the Gemara that we have here. So according to this pshat, what it's saying is, because this person now has to bring both groups of Eidim into Bezdin, like he said, so if the other Baldin is going to invalidate the first group of Eidim that he's bringing, he's not a Negei B'Dover by doing that, because he's not going to gain by invalidating his first Eidim, because now he's going to bring in the second group of Eidim anyways against you. Even after you invalidated his first, he has other Eidim against you anyway. So either way, it's not going to affect the status of this Dintayra, the money over here. So therefore in such a case, you're able to invalidate his Eidim. You're not a Negei B'Dover. But Rabbanan Savri, however, Rabbanan say, Ein et tzarech levarer, you do not have to be mevarer. When a person says, I have two groups of Eidim, you don't have to bring in those two groups of Eidim. It's enough if you bring in one. Just because you said you have two, to prove that you're saying the truth, you don't have to bring in both. It's enough you bring in one. So therefore, according to the Chachamim, if the other Baldin wants to invalidate this one group of Eidim that is in front of us now, that you're Negei B'Dover. The second group of Eidim is not coming. You don't have to bring in the second group of Eidim. So therefore, you can't invalidate those Eidim. This is the Gersa in our Gemara. However, Rashi here brings an opposite Gersa, that Rab Meir Savar Ein Tzarech levarer. And Rashi explains and says that it's and this is actually the pshat that Rashi accepts, that it's mistavet to say the other way around, that if Rab Meir holds that you have to be mevarer, that you have to bring in both groups of Eidim, so then Adarabah, then you're going to be a Negei B'Dover when you're going to invalidate one of the groups of Eidim. Because the other person, he could only win it in Torah by actually bringing both groups of Eidim. Since he said he has both, we're going to force him to back up his words and bring in those two groups of Eidim. So if you're going to invalidate one of them, you're preventing him from winning the case. So Rab Meir, so that Rashi's guidance in the Gemara, in the second Gersa that Rashi brings, and the Gersa that Rashi accepts, Rab Meir holds Ein tzarech levarer, that the other person does not have to bring in the second group of Eidim. Right, so therefore, if you're invalidating one, since he says he has another, he can just bring in one. The fact that you invalidated one is not a problem. But the Rabbanan, according to this Gersa and Rashi, they hold the opposite. Rabbanan hold tzarech levarer, that if he said he has two groups of Eidim, he has to bring in both of them. So if you're going to invalidate one, so it turns out now that what he said is not true. He said he has two groups of Eidim, but one of them are actually puzzle. So therefore you are Negei B'Dover when you're preventing him of winning the case by showing that what he said is true. Okay, the Gemara goes on to say, Avo B'Katachas, if there's just one set of Eidim that the other litigant is bringing, everybody would agree that you cannot pastel the other person's Eidim. You're Negei B'Dover. Now, Amru Lefanov, Rav Ami and Rav Asi said in front of Rav Yechanan, Ein shamela katachas mahu. If there's only one group of Eidim, then what would be the din? So the Gemara right away explains, what were they asking? Ein shamela katachas. If there's only one group of Eidim here, what's the question? We just said, Avol bekat achas divrei hakoil en yachol lepaislam. If there's just one group of Eidim that the other litigant brings in, you can't passel them. There, you're certainly a negei bedover. Elo, so the shaila was as follows: Nimtzes kat shniya kroivin oipsulin mahu. What if it turns out that the second group of Eidim are now either relatives or are apostle in any way? What's going to be the halacha now in such a case? So what's the shaila of the Gemara? Do I say that because it turns out that the second group are kroivin and psulin, so you can't say that you're not in a gei bedover for the first group, because now it turns out that the first group of Eidim are the only Eidim that are here. The second group of Eidim are apostle. So now when you're invalidating the first group of Eidos, now we understand that you're in a gei bedover. Or do we say, no, b'shas ma'isa, when you said Eidos on the first group of Eidim, the other litigant said that he has a second group of Eidim. So at this time, when you were invalidating the first group, you're not in a gei bedover because he still has another group of Eidim to take out the money from you. So you're not gaining anything out of this. So we go at what you were saying, b'shas ma'isa. So Amar lehen, Rabbi Yechanan said to them, Kvar heidu harishainim. The first ones already testified. So we go by what happened b'shas ma'isa. B'shas ma'isa, when the first ones testified, the other ones could have still come. So at that time, you're not in a gei bedover. Ikadamri, others say, Amar Ravashi. Ravashi said, Kvar heidu harishainim, that the first ones already testified. So you're not in a gei bedover, even though later on it turns out that the second group becomes puzzle. Okay, so this is Rabbi Yechanan's pshat in the Mishnah. So what's the point here of this pshat? It's all based on the shaila of tzarech levarer or ein tzarech levarer. When any litigant says, I have more than one group of Eidim, do we force him to bring all of the proof he said he has, or he doesn't have to bring all the proof he said he has, he can just bring one group of Eidim. So the Gemara says, we see this kind of machlekes in a braisa. Name, shall we say, beplukte the Rebbe with Rav Shimon Gamliel kamiflagi. That the argument here between, according to this pshat, between Rab Meir and the Chachamim is the same argument between Rebbe and Rav Shimon Gamliel. The Tanya, as we learned in a braisa, haba lidain, the person is coming into a din Torah regarding a property. So what's the halacha by a property? So here we're talking about a case, a person's occupying a property, a machzik, and then someone else is ma'arer. Someone else comes and says, what are you doing in this property? It belongs to me. How do you prove ownership in a property? There's two options. Either you have a shtar, the deed of the sale, that proves it's yours, and if not, you have to have a chazakeh of the presence in the property for 3 years. That's the other option. So what does this brisa say? So how could you prove your case? B'shtar ub'chazakeh, so you come and you say that you have a shtar, I have a document to prove it's mine, and also I have a chazakeh, I was here 3 years. Nidin b'shtar divrei Rebbe. So Rebbe says you have to produce that shtar, you have to bring the shtar to prove that the property is yours. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, no, nidin b'chazakeh. You said you have a shtar and a chazakeh, so you're going to have to bring witnesses to prove that you were there for 3 years. Now, it sounds like what Rav Shimon Gamliel is saying, that if you're going to bring a shtar, that's not good enough. We're not going to trust the shtar. Only you have to bring Eidim for your chazakeh. Now the question was asked on this, what does this mean? Chazakeh v'loy b'shtar. Rav Shimon Gamliel is saying that you're going to have to bring Eidim that you were there 3 years, but the shtar won't be good. How could that be? A shtar is the best proof. That's a clear shtar for your the sale that you bought the property. Elaim, the pshari and this machlokes is af b'chazakeh. Rav Shimon Gamliel is saying that you have a choice. You said that you have a proof of a shtar. You said you also have a proof of Eidim that you were there 3 years. So now you can bring either one, either proof, either the shtar or the chazakeh. But the Rebbe said that you have to bring the shtar and the chazakeh. It's not going to be enough the chazakeh. You're going to have to bring the shtar as well. So what's the argument of Rebbe and Shimon Gamliel? The kaimalon, and we know that the explanation for their machlokes is the bitzarech levarer pligi. They're arguing. When anybody comes into Bezdin and says in his arguments that I have this and this and this raya, does he have to actually bring forward all those rayas that he says he has, like the argument we said before? So if so, it comes out that the same exact argument here between Rebbe and Shimon Gamliel. Rebbe is saying that you're going to have to bring forward all your arguments, and Rav Shimon Gamliel says no. It's enough that you can bring the chazakah and you're not going to have to bring that shtar. Same exact argument that we had before between Rab Meir, that is, and the Chachamim. There's the two gerses that the Gemara said before, according in Rashi here. Depends who holds like what, but it's the same exact argument. Says the Gemara, no, it's not necessarily connected. According to Rab Shimon Gamliel, kula alma loy pligi. Nobody, they're not disagreeing according to the opinion of Rab Shimon Gamliel. Meaning, this that Rab Shimon Gamliel over here says, you have a choice that you can bring the raya of the shtar, or you can bring the raya of the chazakeh. So everybody will agree that according to Rab Shimon Gamliel, the same will apply over here regarding a case when a person has two sets of edim, that you can bring either one. You don't have to bring both. But according to his opinion, there's no argument. Ki pligi, where is the argument between Rab Meir and the Chachamim? Aliba de Rabbi. They're arguing according to Rebbe's opinion, and in that case, by the property, Rebbe says you must bring both rayas, the shtar and the chazakah. It's according to Rebbe that they argue whether that applies in our case as well. The Rab Meir keRebbe. Rab Meir that says in our case that you must bring both groups of edim will be like Rebbe there that says that you have to bring the shtar and the chazakah. This is according to the gersa that we have in our Gemara, but according to the second gersa that Rashi says, you have to read over here Rabbanon keRebbe, that it's the Rabbanon that hold like Rebbe. Okay. Now, Rabbanan Amri Lach, Rabbanan or Rab Meir, the other opinion will say to you as follows. There's a difference between these two cases. Over there, when you're talking about the proof for the ownership of a property, and you have a chazakah and a shtar, so over there I say that even though you already brought Edom, that you are there for 3 years and you have a chazakah, Rebbe holds you still have to bring the shtar as well. Why? Because the Mikayach shtar kasi, the whole entire power of a chazakah is based on the shtar, because there was a proper sale and there was a shtar here. Elamai, after 3 years, you lose the shtar, so therefore now you can prove it just by your presence there for 3 years. But it has to start with a shtar. A person that's in a property for 3 years and he says, you ask him, what are you doing here? So he says, well, I have a raya that it's mine. I'm here for 3 years. Where did you buy it from? Didn't buy it from anybody. I'm a squatter. I'm here for 3 years. Is that going to be a proof that it's his? No. It all starts with the fact that he bought it and there's a shtar. Then, over 3 years, if he loses the shtar, and he says, I bought it from you, but I lost the shtar, the chazak is good enough. But because over there, the whole koyach of the chazak starts with the shtar, there Rebbe says that if you say you have the shtar, we force you to bring in that shtar. But over here in this case, the Hani Edom Lav Mikoyach Edom Achrini Kasu, when a Baldin says in a Din Torah, I have one set of Edom, I have another set of Edom, one has nothing to do with the other. Over here, so Rab Meir says, or Chachamim say, whichever opinion it is, they would say over here that Rabbi agrees that just because you said you have more than one group of Edom, I don't have to bring in all the Edom that I say I have. It's enough that I bring in one group of Edom. So therefore they're arguing all in the opinion of Rabbi. Since we paskin like Rabbi, so they're arguing according to the opinion of Rabbi.